What's up, everybody? Today on Dirt Lifestyle, we're gonna finish what we believe is the ultimate Dana 30. We're gonna take it out on the trail and test it, and we're gonna get back and we're gonna talk about the cost involved in building an ultimate Dana 30 versus building a Dana 44. So we've got a lot on our plate. We need to get started. We have got a Jeep that is most of the way put together. We just need to polish off the last couple of details. As you saw in the beginning of our series, we welded on this axle truss from Artec. This is a Dana 30 high pinion, which is 30% stronger than the low pinion. So it's a good solid platform to start if you're gonna do an ultimate Dana 30 build. We did add this bracket because we decided that we wanted to try and straighten out that track bar in order to make sure that we reduce the amount of bump steer or anything like that. We got these knuckles. These knuckles are for a WJ actually. So we're using a XJ housing mated to a WJ knuckle. There's special adapters on the outside here to make it to where we can use the bolt pattern that comes stock on a TJ or XJ, so we can use the hub from those, but we get to use the bigger brakes of the WJ. It's quite the upgrade actually. Now these are something that I think is really cool, and it's basically an outer axle seal. I wish they made them for, you know, the high pinion Dana 44s like what I've got, because this is pretty slick. It's two seals, and then you can pump grease in there, and it makes it to where you don't end up filling your axle tube with dirt and mud and everything else. If you watched part 2 of this video series, you saw that our friend Kelly installed 48 gears and a zip locker in this front axle. To finish this, we've got to build steering, we've got to build a panhard bar, but first I want to install the 30 spline RCV axle shafts. These RCV axle shafts are pure beef, and it's actually the same spline count as the Dana 44 on the inner shaft, 30 spline. I'm definitely not worried about breaking these. These are actually the exact same size and spline count shafts that are in my TJ that, you know, handles 40-inch tall tires, no problem. Never had a break. So I think they're gonna handle the 35s on my brother's TJ, no problem. It actually comes with a tool that you can set down in there. It's basically just kind of like a depth gauge. It makes it to where you know how much to clearance out of the inside of the knuckle to accommodate for that larger CV shaft. We need to start by placing this inner boot inside of here because it will not fit through the knuckle itself. These can be kind of tricky to get in there, but I put a little bit of the axle grease itself on the inside of this, so it should be able to work its way right in there. We just got to be patient and just kind of work it in. There we go. Now I'm going to repeat the exact same process on the passenger side. There is one more level above these shafts for an upgrade, and that would be if you got a 30 spline inner and a 30 spline outer. We decided to stick to the 27 spline outer because if you're in the middle of nowhere and you blow out your hub bearing, you don't have to find a 30 spline hub bearing for a TJ, because I've only found one company that makes them, but there's a whole multitude of companies that make hub bearings for TJs that are 27 spline. This little spacer on the outside here is from JCR. We welded it on, so as we're, you know, taking hubs on and off, it's not just one more thing that can fall into your lap. I don't know if this is common practice or not, but I always like to take a little bit of grease and put it around the hub bearing because, you know, I might be the next mechanic that has to pull this thing off of here. The kit also comes with a replacement set of bolts, and these are a little bit more high clearance, so the inside of this shaft doesn't rub on the edge of the bolt. So they basically just neck down that flange. So it's nice that they provide the new hardware. We have to drill out the bolt pattern on the new brake rotors to match the old ones. These are 5 on 4.5, and these are whatever the WJ is. I think 5 on 5 or 5 on 5 1/4 or something like that. Anyway, they're wrong. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use this as a template. We're gonna flip it upside down, we're gonna stagger the bolt holes, and then we're basically just gonna use a transfer punch. If you've never seen a transfer punch, it's just one of these. Makes it to where you can fit it down a hole and transfer where you want to drill to the next piece of material. Pretty easy. We have 1/2-inch studs, and the holes are all 5/8. Well, the old holes are all 5/8, and so we're just gonna drill the new holes exactly the same size, and everything is the old holes. Keep it simple. Now, if you ask me, do I like the idea of drilling out existing rotors to fit on the vehicle? I don't. I don't like the idea of there being like double the holes in the same rotor. I'd hate to see a crack or something form between all the holes. I'm not sure if that's a common issue or what, but as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of options, and this is a pretty common swap. There's a lot of people doing this, so fingers crossed. Hopefully everything's gonna turn out okay. The next big upgrade you get by going with the WJ outers are these giant 2-piston calipers. These are sweet and will definitely provide a lot more stopping power than the factory TJ or XJ brakes, which if you've owned a TJ or an XJ30, you know they don't stop very well once you put 35s or bigger on them. Between the rear disc from the Ford 8.8 and the 2-piston calipers and the larger rotors in the front, this thing's gonna stop on a dime. We are looking good with the brakes, RCVs. We're definitely ready for the next step. We need to do our steering and our panhard bar. Since the panhard bar is behind the steering, I'm just gonna choose to do that first. So we need to connect from this upper hole right here to this factory style TJ bracket on the frame. This part's easy. Well, kinda easy. You gotta squat underneath the rig. But we're just gonna measure from the inside of one weld-in bung to the inside of the other weld-in bung. Another little piece of advice is I always make sure that the axle is centered with the Jeep before I make any kind of measurements like this, at least within a 1/4 inch or so. I pulled a measurement and I marked it on the tube right here. Now I'm gonna have to make a bend because I wanna make sure that this panhard bar will clear my brother's brand new front axle. I don't wanna be having any kind of interference problems. Because it's gonna have to be so close to the joint, I'm gonna put a bend in it now and then I'm gonna cut it on the mark and then I'm gonna weld the bungs in. I like it, it's not too bad, but I think I need to put a little bit more of a bend in it. It might be hard to tell on the camera, but this bend is in just the right spot. It just needs to be bent a little bit farther down, and in the combination of the two bends we make, it should pull it just far enough away from that differential that we won't have to worry about it. It all looks good to me. As you can see, I kind of rolled it up out of the way, so as that diff comes up, it's gonna be a little bit higher above the diff and slightly in front of it, so we should have no clearance issues now. We've got one more thing on the agenda. We've got some steering that we need to make happen. We're gonna use the 3/4 inch Heim joint kit from Rough Stuff. So I use the 7/8 whenever I can, but with something that's got small knuckles like this, I use the 5/8 because there's not a whole lot of meat on the bone once you drill that out. Check out that steering. That is looking good. It's definitely beefy. 1.5 inch quarter wall DOM, and behind that drag link is a almost perfectly inlined panhard bar. I think he's not gonna be having any bump steer issues. Now, the unfortunate thing is the panhard bar is considerably shorter than the drag link. The good thing is they're in the same motion of the arc. That's the most important thing. He's gonna have very little, probably 0 bump steer. I've been filming this video under a tremendous time crunch. So I have to load this thing onto my trailer tomorrow, and the day after that, we're gonna take it wheeling for the weekend. We're gonna do a true break-in run. We're gonna be going over the mountains. We're gonna be far away from home. So we have a lot of faith in our build quality. Hopefully it works out for us. The tech part of this video is gonna be shorter, but I'm gonna be seeing you on the trail. The two main questions that I've gotten during this build has been, how much does the Ultimate Dana 30 cost? How much would it cost to build a G2 44 the same way as you're building the Dana 30? So I took the time to add up every single thing that we spent on the Dana 30 and everything that we would have spent on a Dana 44, and I even decided to see what it would cost to build a Super Duty Dana 60. So this cost is going to be including everything. Oil, brand new brakes, brand new rotors, brand new calipers, brand new hub bearings, literally everything that it costs, including paint, to do this axle. This was kind of a shock to me at how much it cost in the end. I looked up and I wrote down the part numbers for every single one of these parts that we used, and I was able to get most of them on an Amazon list. So if there's something that you saw that we used that you like, if you want to click the link that's in our description, it'll take you to a shopping list basically that has everything that we used on this Dana 30. So the grand total for the Dana 30 build, $47.87.15. That is a crap load of money. I did not expect it to cost this much, but when you start to add up brand new ball joints, brand new hub bearings, brand new brake pads, brand new rotors, I mean, all that stuff adds so much cost. Not to mention, selectable lockers are not cheap. We all know that. We were not willing to reuse ball joints just for the reliability factor. We were not willing to reuse any brake components. We were not willing to reuse hubs. And there's just a number of parts that are in this that we didn't want to compromise on. A really big one, which is huge for reliability with the Dana 30, and that is the RCV axle shafts. I personally run RCVs in my TJ. I wanted my brother to run RCVs in his TJ. They are really good. They have a great reputation in the industry for a reason. Also, something I didn't mention earlier is that the brake calipers that we used were the teaves, I think. I'm not an expert on the WJ brake conversion, but either way, it's the smaller calipers, and because we have a 15-inch wheel, we didn't have room for the Akibono or Akbono, however you pronounce them. We decided not to go that route simply because of the size of the rim. So what does it cost to build a Dana 44? If we want to use a Dana 44, we're either going to have to narrow one from full size rig, or we're going to have to get a TJ version, or you can buy an aftermarket housing like one from G2. This is the one that everybody kept bringing up in messages to me or comments and whatever else. And so I decided to put together a parts list, and most of it is the exact same. You will have to use your own outers if you buy an aftermarket Dana 44, whether that's completely built, sent to your door, or that's buying a housing and loading it yourself. So all of the cost to build the WJ knuckles and the high steer and stuff like that end up being the exact same for either axle. The grand total to build a G2 Dana 44 with the same quality and caliber of parts that we used is gonna end up being $69.72. Not cheap. So there's a number of other ways you can do this. Like I said, we can buy a used F-150 front end like what I've got. I've got a high pinion Dana 44 in my TJ out of an F-150, but in order for my brother to use that, we'd have to narrow it. Also, the stock shafts that are in those Dana 44s are awful. So you're definitely gonna wanna still gonna wanna do some RCVs. So with the cost of RCVs, and they have to be modified, so you're getting the cost of custom RCVs, it ended up being even more money than just buying a G2 housing in the first place. And this is just parts cost. This is not including any labor or anything. We didn't spend a dime on labor because my brother is related to Nate with Dirt Lifestyle, so he gets a pretty good deal. The overall cost of the Dana 60 was $77.93.14. Now it's only $1,000 more or so than the G2 Dana 44, but there's a few other things that we need to factor in. Like I said, we can't go full size width on my brother's TJ 35s. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, in fact, a Dana 60 doesn't make a lot of sense. I just wanted to compare costs with you guys. So the cost to narrow the Dana 60, I could do that myself, and then I'd have to modify the brackets and stuff to all work. We could do all that in-house. That's not gonna cost us extra money, but it would cost you extra money. Now, the cost of RCVs, I'm not gonna run stock Dana 60 shafts. If you look it up online, I found a number of sources that show a chromoly Dana 44 shaft being stronger than a stock Dana 60 shaft. So this cost for the Dana 60 doesn't include the RCVs being custom, but it does include the cost of RCVs, which are, they're pretty pricey for a Dana 60. But my brother's TJ would be good to a 44. We're only running a 35. You guys can see clearly Dana 60 is not an option for us for a number of reasons. Even if I reuse tons of stuff on the Dana 60 to get the cost down, at the end of the day, all the parts that we have to have, the locker, the gear set, the install kit, all that stuff, and like I said, I'm not gonna reuse the old brakes. It's gonna end up being still more than it costs us to build this, ultimate high pinion Dana 30. This next little bit of information is for you TJ, YJ, and XJ owners out there. We've got fairly lightweight rigs, so we can get away with a lot. We also don't make a ton of power, so we can get away with a lot. That being said, if you had an XJ, a TJ, or a YJ, you've got the 4.0, and you're wondering how big of a tire you could run on an Ultimate Dana 30 like this, I would very comfortably run a 37 the way it's set up right now. This Dana 44 setup with the G2 axle, I think that's a great setup. It's way overkill for my brother's build. I would comfortably run a 40 all day with that G2 Dana 44 setup. It's got, JK ring and pinion, which is already stronger than your TJ 44. It's a little bit bigger ring and pinion, and I think that that's probably a really strong axle at the end of the day. Also, I didn't talk about this earlier, but I included the cost of the truss. It's not really that much money with the Dana 44 because I was looking at the size of the housing and everything else. There's no chance you're gonna see me running a stock G2 axle, putting all that money into the internals and then going out on the trail without a truss. That thing needs a truss. It's still not very big compared to a Dana 60 or something like that. And sometimes you don't bend it, but you can flex it, and you can break parts just by getting the housing to flex. Sometimes a truss is great just to keep things from flexing, not necessarily keep them from bending. With this Super Duty Dana 60, I would very comfortably run a 44 sticky probably, and I would not be worried about breakage with a TJ, an XJ, or a YJ. So all three of these axles have their purpose. They are all awesome axles. I personally would own and have owned actually all three of them. I've owned all three of these axles, and as long as you are keeping them within what they're intended for, you don't put 40s on a Dana 30 or anything crazy like that, they're all great. You just got to make sure you're choosing the right build for the axle that you have. I hope that some of you guys kind of beginning into this world can take away some information to make the best decision on whether or not you want to buy some axles out of a catalog that bolt right in, or you want to try and build it yourself. There's a lot of misleading information on the internet as far as costs. Everybody tells you to swap an LS costs $800. Everybody tells you to swap a 1-ton Dana 60 costs $1,000, whatever. And these prices are way exaggerated, and I'm hoping that this video can help steer you in the right direction and see what it's really like to build something like this from scratch. I appreciate you guys hanging in there to the very end. If you're watching this, if you enjoyed what you saw, make sure you hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And also, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Dirt Lifestyle Nate. One more thing before we go. Last night on social media, I posted, give me your best guess on how much it costs to build the Ultimate Dana 30. And I got a couple hundred guesses. So after fishing through all those, we have two winners, one on Instagram and one on Facebook. Our Instagram winner is Matt Dank Shaw at $46.87. The cost was $47.87. I don't know how you cheated, dude, but I think you might have cheated. But either way, I can't prove it, so you're getting a sticker. On Facebook, it was Ken Pritman, $4,500, not counting beer. Yes, very close, sir, very close. So you win for Facebook. If either one of you guys can just email me, Nate at thedirtlifestyle.com. I'll get your information and send you out a sticker. See you next Friday, guys.